All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the college football week 5. Week 5 is already here. Betting show brought to you by Fighting Chance Fantasy. Very, very thankful to have these guys. I'm Kayvon Ezami. You can follow me on Twitter at Kayvon_sports, alongside my guy Dan Hickman, Dan H720 with the NC State shirt on. Let's hope he doesn't get his feelings hurt later this weekend when they go to Clemson and take on the Tigers. That's a fascinating game we'll talk about here. For those that are new to the show, welcome. How this works is Dan and I each give out 3 bets a week, 6 bets total. One of our bets is our best bet. It's our favorite play of the day. And we had a phenomenal season last year. We both ended up with very high over. I think we will pull that record back out, but we ended up very high over 500. This year, it's been a little bit shaky. Dan's definitely been hitting a hot streak there. Getting a little bit close with mine. Dan, you can pull up the recap here as I pass it to you. But thank you for tuning in, those that are new. So what we'll do is we'll go back and forth with our favorite plays. If you have any plays that you like, you can comment. You can reach out to us on Twitter, Dan H720, myself, Kayvon_sports. Dan, how are you doing? And go ahead and recap your week on the show.
Yeah, doing great. I love week 5 coming up. Week 4, for me, it's like once I get some information that I feel like we got some data sample. I really like to get into the rankings of things and just incorporate that in all my handicaps. So I love this time of year, and I couldn't be more excited right now. I was ready to go 20 minutes ago. I mean, I was just crawling out of my seat just with excitement. So yeah, I'm super pumped for this week.
Fun, man.
Not just as a fan of my team, I differentiate that 100% from my betting, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a coin on the Wolfpack this week. I'm doing it. So anyways, last week, once again, I went 2-1. So I'm starting to get some traction on the season. App State, James Madison, what a thriller. It was so fun, catching a little bit of that game and just seeing it hit, but just to see James Madison come back the way they did, it was impressive. I'll talk about that. There will be a little lead in into one of my plays this week on in a game they're involved with, just to foreshadow that a bit. Old Dominion broke my heart, man. They got inside field goal range there at the very end of the game. They were up 3, so they had a chance to make it 6 with a field goal. And they literally called the same exact running play. Anyone watching knows this. They called the exact same freaking running play 3 times in a row on the left tackle. And who are they? Arkansas State was just waiting for it every single time and stuffed it. And even they lost yardage all the way. And then they took I think a holding or a false start, and that put them completely out of field goal range. Super tilting. I would have had my parlay would have gone off too. And I would have had a clean sweep because usually I'm doing a sprinkle parlay on my 3 plays. But anyways, that brings me to 5-8 on the season. I'm down 3 1/3 units on my show bets. I can just be honest, and I'll tell you guys, my personal is definitely worse than that right now. But this, it's starting to get some traction. Hopefully I'll have some cool stuff on Twitter later tonight, tomorrow, and the next 48 hours before the slate. And I'll just toss it to you if you want to talk about your week.
Good stuff, man. So listen, slow start for sure. Started out decent, gotten into a cold streak here. As I have said, unfortunately, I'm doing the listeners disservice because I've been doing well with my plays on Twitter. The shows haven't been great. So that's why I always say follow us on Twitter. But the thing is to bring it hot here on the show. So my week was wild. And this is why. First of all, I was at my buddy's bachelor party all weekend. So I was trying to stay focused on the games. I got to win this, but also having a great time. The UCLA easy win.
Yes.
Michigan was a terrible read. I will be fully transparent. It was a bad read. That was the wrong side from the beginning. I underestimated Maryland. And what I did was I took advantage of Michigan's disgusting porous schedule. Michigan should go to jail for the schedule that they have played so far. And they beat up on all these teams and they've looked so good. And then they go play a team that they've dominated in the past. And I said, let's fire on it. Michigan was nowhere to be handled. They were terrible. They barely even got the win against Maryland, which I don't think Maryland's that good of a team, but that was the wrong week. This is the game I really want to talk about here, the Arkansas game.
Oh boy.
For those that are new to betting, you're not going to understand what I'm about to say here. But for those that are watching that have been, you're going to get it, and I know Dan's going to get it. Even though Arkansas lost, I will take that same exact bet 10 times out of 10, even if I know the result's going to be a loss. And this is why I say that. Sometimes you have to watch the game script. I had it right. If you watched that game, Arkansas was up 14-7 on the 1-yard line, about to go up 21-7 in the first half, and they fumbled. Texas A&M took it all the way back for a 99-yard touchdown, and that was basically the game. And then still, even after that happened, they had a chance to win it with a field goal at the end. They missed. The kicker missed it. That would have pushed our team total over. I was very, very confident in that play, and I would take that play again, even though it wasn't the outcome that we want. And just so you guys will see how confident I am, you might see a bet down the road here on a team that reminds you of Arkansas if they're not Arkansas themselves. So we shall see where that goes. Dan, let's take this off and let's move over to our first bets of the week here, week 5. Again, thank you for tuning in. You can follow Dan Hickman, DanH720 on Twitter, myself at Kayvon_sports. And what we're going to do is Dan's going to start it off himself with his first bet of the weekend, and then he's going to pass it on to me, and we'll go from there. The first thing, Dan, and we'll talk about some of these other games in between as we go, but until then, let's just start it off with your first play of the weekend.
Yeah, sure. Let me pull that back up here. All right, guys. So I tend to kind of start off with like a total or, like a hold your nose kind of play.
Let's call it what it is, bro. This is a degenerate bet. This is the degen special. Yeah.
This is not a team. This is not a team that I frequently. I'm actually about to say I don't think I've ever even bet on this team. Yeah, I've never bet on this team before. I'm gonna go ahead and say that, the disclaimer. But this is definitely a total play on the numbers and the math. I looked at a lot of different things here, and I'm gonna go with the Texas State Bobcats plus 21.5. All right. They should be catching points here. They should be underdogs. Yes. They're pretty bad in a number of categories, like, defensively. They're pretty rough, but and they are facing a good quarterback in Centeio. Again with JMU, that was part of the half of the reason, or JMU is like half the reason I liked the overbet last week with App State. Centeio had something to do with that. But in that game, if you notice, App is a halfway decent secondary, and he kind of struggled a little bit, kind of facing like a halfway decent team finally, because they had played nothing but crap competition before that. Well, not going to believe this, but Texas State, this is going to be like the first secondary Centeio's faced all season long that's top 100 nationally. They actually have, I read up on this, should probably give someone else an article credit. I can't remember where I read it, but second best coverage grade it's PFF. I want to give PFF some credit. I was looking at PFF earlier. Texas State's got the second best secondary grade. Pretty shocking. Pace and possessionally, these teams are both inside the top 30. Finishing drives wise, JMU is 37th in the country overall. They're a little better in that category, but when I looked inside of the finishing drives and I looked at just purely red zone earlier, this is like one of those stats I like to just take a quick peek at. It was really interesting. Texas State defensively is allowing, I think the touchdowns are coming in when someone gets in the red zone against them 72% of the time. And they only have a 63.64 conversion rate in the red zone on the season. And JMU is even worse than that, which is kind of surprising to me. They're like 83.3% teams are getting touchdowns that often against them once they get into the red zone. They're actually allowing points like 100% of the time or something like that. Like almost every time someone gets in there, they're coming away with something. And on top of all this, the power rankings that I like to look at, I like to look at SP Plus. I've got another source on power rankings I like to look at to kind of help determine where like a baseline for the spread should be. And I'm going to touch on that in all three of my bets tonight and use that. So with this game, it's got JMU as basically 11-point favorites. So I've got a discrepancy here of about 10 points. Right now, this line's sitting at 21.5. I recommend going ahead and grabbing that. If it gets down to 21, I'm okay with it. Hell, even 20 something, I'm probably still okay with it. But it starts ticking down more than that, I'm kind of I would probably still take it, but I'm not like gonna double up my units or anything. And yeah, so I mean, I like the value on this. Also, that JMU defense. Don't forget, like this defense only returned 4 starters from one of the best in FCS last season. It's a team that's still their first season in FBS play. Above all else, my final point and biggest point here from a narrative standpoint, this is going to be found in 2 of my 3 bets tonight at least. Yeah, 2 out of 3. When like a smaller team's coming off a big win against like a Power 5 team, like that App State win at App is probably the biggest win in school history for James Madison.
I told you guys to sprinkle on.
And by the way, this guy next to me told you all to sprinkle that.
When you made the bet for the over, which is a great bet, said sprinkle on JMU. I should have used them as a show bet though, but keep going.
Nice parlay piece. Would have been. Yeah, for sure. So on the money line, that is, because they ended up winning. What a comeback. But after an emotional, big, hard-fought win like that against a bigger team, like, App's not technically a Power 5 team, but, I mean, you look at all-time history for James Madison, this is probably one of, if not their biggest win ever. There's nowhere to, like, go emotionally from that, but kind of naturally drift downward a little bit. We're talking about college athletes here. I think that effect is way more dramatic here than it is, like, in pro sports, and I do weigh it fairly heavily in my handicaps, so I'm really like predicting that this is going to be a classic letdown spot for JMU here, even though they're at home. I think Texas State's going to do just enough to cash this ticket for us. It's not going to be pretty, but give me Texas State plus 21.5.
There it is. First bet of the day. Dan, Texas State plus 21.5. All right, let's move it on to my first bet of the day. And I'm going with a team that I've bet on a ton this year, and they've been great to me so far, and I'm going to keep it up. And that is the Utah Utes minus 10. Now, I don't usually love taking a conference favorite this big. That's not usually something that I do. But as I've reiterated numerous times here, throughout this season that we've been doing this show, Utah is in a situation now where they have to win every single game, and I keep using the word sexy because it matters how they win, and they need to win sexy if they want a chance to get anywhere near the college football playoff. And the good thing for Utah, even though my buddy Dan here disagrees with me and thinks they have absolutely zero shot to make it, the good thing for Utah is the Pac-12 is actually having a very good year this year. Oregon's looked great other than that bad loss to Georgia, but everyone's looked bad against Georgia. They've other than that, they've taken care of business against everybody they played. USC is undefeated. That's a huge thing for Utah there. Washington looks phenomenal. They've got a tricky game tomorrow night against UCLA, but the more these teams keep winning, that is better for a team like Utah. But they have to keep taking care of business, like I've been saying this whole time. Now, Oregon State is a team that I usually don't like to bet against because they're a feisty team, they're a well-coached team, and those are teams that I typically stay away from. I usually bet on, not bet against. But I'm taking Utah minus 10 here. They're at home, and this is why. Oregon State played their Super Bowl last week. And not only did they play their Super Bowl against USC, they almost won their Super Bowl. It's not like they went in there and got their butts kicked. They almost won if it wasn't for a final drive at the end by Caleb Williams, a beautiful catch by Jordan Addison. Corvallis is going partying all night long if that didn't happen.
I'd like to throw in some questionable officiating too in that game.
A lot of people have said that too, but listen, it is what it is. USC ended up winning. And I think it's going to be very hard for an Oregon State team that wanted that game so bad, that wanted to be the first to beat the Lincoln Riley USC Trojans. Almost got it at home. Now they got to get up, go to Salt Lake City, play a Utah team that is looking to destroy anybody in their path so that they can get some recognition. Not to mention, Oregon State is really, really bad against the run. And Utah might have one of the best offensive lines in all of college football. Top 5 at least. They are a phenomenal offensive line. It's very rare for a Pac-12 team, but Utah recruits different up there. They find these offensive linemen and they train them and they develop them. They've got a phenomenal offensive line. It's at Utah, and I don't think 10 points is enough. I think Utah runs away with this, wins by 17 points, maybe even 20, depending on how the game gets. I think that this is a very big win for Utah because it's their first semi-big game since that Florida game. They played cupcakes. We bet against them. They've pounded them all. And I'm not saying Oregon State is some massive game, but it's a good team. It's a bowl team. They've got to take care of business, and they've got to do it in a sexy way. Give me Utah -10 for my first play.
I dig it enough. Yeah, I could see them covering that. Definitely. I still have nightmares from that week one at Florida.
Yeah, and a lot of people do, man.
It's gambler's fallacy, but it is what it is. All right, so
what you got next?
For my second pick, I'm going back to the well, baby. I love this team. I'm probably higher on them than all the public bettors out there. Give me the mean purple. Give me the TCU Horned Owls at Oklahoma. Right now it's +6.5. You could wait on it. We might get a 7. I was looking at the line movement before the show. It's been kind of going between like -112 and -107 when I was looking at it. And I think you'll find a lot of -110 out there for that line for the +6.5 on TCU. So it's not really screaming to me that it's going to hit 7 right now, but we still got time. And you know what? A lot of people like to bet on Oklahoma. So I will say this one with an asterisk, like wait for it if you want and grab a 7 when you see it. If you've got a betting tracker, put that alert on there and do it. And if you want to fade me on this play, I don't hate you for it. Like, I understand. However, I'll just touch on a few things here. It did open at +4.5 for TCU. It's now hanging around 6.5, right? Like I said, obviously we expect that when we're playing Oklahoma. I think Duggan is unreal. I think I don't want to knock Dylan Gabriel here, but I do think Duggan's just a little better right now. I think it's going to be a great game. You're going to see 2 elite quarterbacks in college football just gut it out here. A few like things of note. OU is 74th in rushing yards allowed per game, which kind of surprised me a little bit. And TCU is definitely capable of running the ball. They're not just a passing attack like a lot of people seem to think. And the quarterbacks, I mean, Duggan's #1 quarterback rating in all of college football right now, in case you haven't heard out there. And Gabriel is 12th, so he's right up there too. Like I said, it's just going to be a lot of fun. And then TCU is shockingly on that other defensive category. They're for rushing yards allowed per game. They're actually 27th in the country so far to this point. Granted, CU is still on there.
Yeah.
Inflating that a little bit. One of the most pathetic running attacks in college football I've ever seen in CU. And also
Pathetic everything.
Dead last at stopping the run. I happen to see that there. So again, you got to be looking to find something against them every week, whatever it might be. Anyways, back to the task here. Their defenses and yards per completion. This is a big one. OU's coming in really strong at 22nd in the country. So make no mistake, this is a strength-on-strength matchup there. It's going to be a good battle. TCU's 46th in that same category. So I think, that's probably going to surprise a lot of people in this game. I think the people that are backing OU are going to be like, holy shit, like, how is TCU like breaking up all these passes? How are they getting to the quarterback a little bit, making Gabriel run a little bit? Like, how are they doing this? And it's like, well, this is a good unit. They don't have continuity from previous seasons, and they came together this season after all the transfer portal stuff. So I really like them a lot. Make no mistake, my first play was a play on the numbers. This is my contrarian play. I absolutely love it. I don't even care like that Oklahoma's getting only 29% of the bets are coming in on TCU right now and only 43% of the money, but that is a nice discrepancy there, and it is creeping up. So, I mean, I still think that overall, like, it's going to move towards Oklahoma. I'm kind of curious what you think, if we're going to get a 7 or not.
I don't know, because I think there's some sharp money with TCU. I think the public's going to be all over Oklahoma, obviously, but I don't know if the sharps are allowed to get to 7.
I appreciate the compliment.
You got more to say.
Yeah, I appreciate the compliment. And yeah, I think, I do think, my power rankings that I like to use has this game within a field goal. And I think that's pretty accurate. Of course, I could be totally piss-ass wrong, and like, OU is a good enough team that they can come in here and beat them by 2 scores or so. I do think that is in, the probabilities of outcomes, although I think that's way less likely to happen than a close game, which I think we're going to see like easily half the time here. So all that being said, give me TCU plus 6.5. If you want to wait for the 7, that's fine too. If I see a 7, I'm going to pile on another half unit myself.
Yeah, can't hate that one, man. It's a good play. TCU's been awesome. We both have been on them from the start, but you really have been on them. I just mainly was on them over the summer when I got that phenomenal line value against Colorado. But you've been on them for the Big 12. It'll be interesting. Like I told you before the show, if Oklahoma didn't lose last week, this would be my best bet. I would be hammering TCU. With loss, and with the way Brent Venables, a defensive guy, Adrian Martinez runs for 4 touchdowns. Adrian Martinez from Nebraska. Like, come on, man. That's got to hurt your pride. No offense to Adrian Martinez, but that's got to really, if they can't get the boys going. With that being said, I think it's going to be a complete shootout. I think it's going to be so fun. Yeah. I can't wait to watch that game. It'll be interesting.
Gabriel and Duggan are just, man, those guys are amazing. I think it's going to be so fun to watch. You're going to see a theme in all my bets too at the state. They're all going to be, all these teams are in. But do we want to I'll let you get to your second one. And then after that second one, do we want to talk about like some of the spots that were hard to like kind of for you to like maybe filter into getting down to these 3 this week? And we can touch on real quick some of that. And of course, the game of the year in Clemson this week.
It's not the game of the year. Just stop. I can't let you go there, dude. It's not. I know you're
not all. Not all of.
But we'll get to it in a minute. Let's go to this bet here. We'll get to it in a minute, and then we'll go to the state game.
I mean, game of the year for our favorite team. That's for sure.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. All right, this is what we're gonna go with here. I'm going with the big dog, the big game of the play, the big game of the weekend. I'm not shying away from the big bad Alabama. I am taking Arkansas plus 17, and I'm not scared. Maybe a little bit. No, I'm not. I'm gonna take this, and I'm gonna take it with pride here, and this is why. There is a trend going on with Alabama lately that is very alarming, and that is them on the road as a big favorite has been a massive disappointment lately. Okay, let me read you the last 5 true road games where they were favorites of at least 16 points or higher. Florida, last year, 13-point favorites, They barely won 31-29. Texas A&M last year, 18.5-point favorites. They lost outright 41-38. Mississippi State, 17-point favorites. Bama ended up crushing that one 49-9. Auburn, 20.5-point favorites. They won in triple overtime 24-22. And then Texas this year, 20 points favorite, and they barely squeaked by with a last-second field goal. This is a trend that we're seeing. I don't know what it is. I think it has more to do that there are flaws in this Alabama team, and we are seeing it by the way they're playing. I know they haven't lost yet, but you have to look further into it than just their win-loss record. They're not playing good football. They're beatable on the back end. Usually Nick Saban teams are great on the defensive backs. Their weakness is they don't have these stud receivers like Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle and all these guys. They don't have those guys this year. They have one guy that's phenomenal. Well, two guys. They have a lot of really good guys. It's still Alabama, but they have one guy that's really just amazing in Bryce Young and Will Anderson on the defensive end. And that's what's helping them win games and still win by a decent margin. But now you look at Arkansas. Arkansas is in what I like to call the 200-200 club. That means they're averaging 200 yards in the air and 200 yards on the ground. They can do both. This is going to be, for those of you DFS players out there that do college, this is going to be a massive game for KJ Jefferson. He is going to run all over the place. The one weakness Arkansas has is their secondary. They've got issues in the secondary. They are getting guys back, though. They're getting more healthy. I don't think it's that big of a deal anymore. And also, I just don't think it matters that much because I think whenever Alabama scores, I think Arkansas is going to score too. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think the over hits probably, but I don't care about any of that. It's like 60.5 or something, 61. But I'm taking Arkansas plus 17 at home. Pig Suey. The Arkansas fans are going to be live and rowdy. Let's get it going. Arkansas plus 17 here. And, of course, I'm not saying, put a lot on it, but always sprinkle a little bit on the money line because you never know what can happen down in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Give me Arkansas plus 17.
I like it. It's very ballsy in my opinion, but I like it. If I was going to take either team in this game, it would be Arkansas, I think.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the big game down in Clemson, South Carolina. Game day is going to be there. They're playing the team that is on Dan's shirt right there, NC State versus Clemson. A lot of people are saying that this is for the Atlantic, which is kind of disrespecting Florida State and Syracuse, who are also undefeated. But
I agree with that.
It is, a lot of people are saying that this is for the Atlantic. I will quickly give my thoughts on it, then I can let you give yours. I think that State is, and I hate saying this because I feel bad for everybody that's in this hurricane. The first and foremost is that you guys are okay and that everything's all right. Sports is an aftermath. But I think that State is lucky that there's a hurricane going on. I think State would get their ass kicked if there wasn't. I think the weather is going to help State out so much. It's going to muck up the game, and it's going to help them create an ugly game, which is what State wants. Because if DJU plays anything like he played last Saturday, which, mind you, Wake Forest's defense is terrible, so he's not going to be like that. But if he can do anything like that, State's going to have a hard time. But with this weather, it's going to help State muck it up a little bit. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I do think Clemson wins it, but I do think State has a chance because of the weather.
Okay. I'm very torn on this game in terms of if you were to ask me who do you think straight up's going to win, gun to my head, I think I'm going to have to actually say I think Clemson's going to win the game. I think they're going to find a way to beat NC State, but man, I would not be comfortable placing that bet. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game.
I don't know about I agree. Okay, so with the weather, I guess the big question for me is always what's the win situation. Wet footballs is one thing, but it's a pretty small factor. Is the field going to be soggy? Is their field better than our field in terms of drainage? I hope it is, because Carter Finley is horrible with the crown. So the sidelines are just super deep in water. Ask Dave Doran's state coach. He said that Notre Dame game, there was water calf deep. So I hope Memorial Stadium is better. I don't know if it is. I actually am pulling up AccuWeather right now and just kind of looking at it, trying to find it. It's probably worth taking a look at that. I honestly grabbed a half unit on like when the total was like kind of up and high, and I thought there's a chance of bad weather. I just kind of took a little nibble on the 46. I think that's down to it got all the way down to like 41 I saw, and I think it's at like 43 right now. I mean, in terms of the spread, I probably would lean NC State because I think this game's going to be very close, and I do have something on that off the show bet or on my personal card. I was looking at both defenses are great. You get bad weather and great defense. I just think it's a recipe for an under. Like naturally, I drift that way. But Clemson's like run defense has been really impressive to me, like a little better than NC State's. I feel like Clemson's playing up to their level that they're capable of playing. NC State has showed me they can play down to some of the team's levels, like ECU really comes to mind, and I know it was week 1, but this is going to be a big test for NC State. This is like, as a fan, where they always tend to let us down and why it is tough being a State fan. But I think it's going to be a hell of a game. I hope the weather is not too much of a factor. And I might actually disagree with you on that. I think if we have really good weather, I think it allows us to actually I'm saying if there's no wind, if the wind is not a factor, if it's under 15 mile an hour sustained winds, that's usually the point at which the weather becomes a big factor in a football game. If it's over 15 mile an hour or 15 mile an hour and up sustained winds, it really can impact the passing game and the kicking game. So if we're not going to have that, I actually kind of like State a little more because I do think that Clemson is going to have more to worry about. They're not going to be able to just worry about stopping a run. They're going to have to worry about everything. And I do think the gadget of plays that State employs, and I do think some of the talent they have. My concern is getting Devin Carter involved. I haven't seen enough of that. He's like the big physical wideout for State that can make all the difference here. We don't have a Mezzi anymore. So I do think, you need a big game from a Carter in this game. And some of Thayer Thomas as well, those go-to guys for Leary, they have to step it up this game and find a way for State to win. But on the other side, for Clemson, for me, this is all about DJ. This is his big test. Because last season, he completely unraveled, I would say, in that game. He didn't – did he ever? And I know he looks way better this season, but he hasn't seen a defense like this yet, and neither has Leary. So it's just going to be a very fun game to watch. I think no matter the outcome, it deserves to be the game day game this week, and I'm thrilled as a fan that it is. Not as thrilled on the betting side, but, man, it's going to be fun to watch.
No doubt about it. All right, let's go to best bets. I'll go first since you were just talking there, just to switch it up a little bit. Yeah. So for my best bet here, I am going with UTSA and Middle Tennessee State over 62.5. That is my best bet. I think it's gone up now to like 63, 64. I would take it at 64, but I wouldn't touch any higher. Look, it's a really high total now, and probably the smarter move is to do what Dan's going to tell you here in a minute, which I love too, and I've also bet. But I love the over. Let me tell you, UTSA last 7 road games, 7-0 to the over. 7-0 to the over, last 7 road games. Middle Tennessee State is getting their juices going. They're flowing on offense. Yes, they might have a letdown after that Miami win, but it's going to be a letdown defensively. They're still going to score points. UTSA is not going to stop them. Both teams are going to score. Both teams know it's conference play time. It's time to roll. I like a fireworks of a show. I think the winner is in the 40s in this game. Give me UTSA, Middle Tennessee State over 62.5. Go ahead and wrap it up with your best bet, Dan.
I love it. And what's crazy is we didn't talk before the show about this or anything. We actually end up on best bets in the same game. I'm going to keep my Texas theme going here. Every single bet's been from the state of Texas. I'm going to keep it rolling here. I'm going to take the meep -4, baby, all day. This is an easy one for me. It opened at -6. Yeah, I get it. Like, Middle Tennessee beat Miami last week. What does that mean? I mean, this is the prime kind of spot I was talking about earlier with that narrative. You have like a non-Power 5 small school beat a big Power 5 school with all the program history of Miami. Coming on this huge emotional win to get there. I actually bet them live last week to win that game, by the way. Yeah, true story. So now here we go. We're going to just go with the Roadrunners here. This is a auto letdown spot for me. Vast majority of the time, you're going to see a drop off in performance from a team like Middle Tennessee State in a spot like this, and I'm more than willing to bet on that. Outside of that, let's see. I got this at about -10. So the fact that it's sitting at like -6, I think UTSA is capable of like running away with this game on the road at Murfreesboro. This is an obvious let up. We got 72% of the bets and 85% of the money, if I'm not mistaken, was coming in on UTSA when I checked before the show. Plays per game, UTSA is 8th in the country in that, and that's something I definitely look at. Middle Tennessee's down middle in plays per game at like 69th. Yards per play, UTSA 65th. Middle Tennessee down at 96th. You're talking about 5, not a big difference really. Like at this point, I mean too much, but it is a little something. 5.6 yards per play versus 4.8. In the power rankings that I use, man, this has UTSA at -15.5. So this is like the biggest discrepancy of the week, and hence it's my best bet right there. All day long. I can't wait to watch this game. 7:30 Eastern Saturday night, I want to say. And by the way, to what you were saying earlier, I didn't have this on my notes, so I can't glance and look. But when I was like, shout out to teamrankings.com, great site. If you go there, you can get all kinds of like stats on college football. So I usually like looking through there. Both secondaries leave something to be desired here. And there's some pace to these teams. I think if the weather doesn't become a factor, like with wind, again, I hate to say that, but as long as there's nothing else working against that, like if Middle Tennessee is able to get some scores, and I think you're right, they will score.
There's going to be a ton of big plays.
There's going to be a lot of like explosive plays between these teams as well. They both have cast of characters that can get it done there. So it is a high total, but I'd be lying if I said I'm not going to sprinkle. I don't do these often, but we got a prime spot for a single game parlay as a double best bet this week, people.
No
So let's do it. I'm going to tweet about this one later. Give me UTSA -4.
Let's do it. Meep. There it is. So recap here. We will get on out of here. Dan with his bets, he is Texas State plus 21.5, TCU plus 6.5, two big underdogs there. And the best bet, UTSA -4 against Middle Tennessee State. Myself, Utah -10, the big Utes in Salt Lake. Arkansas at home against the big scary Alabama plus 17. And then the same game as Dan, UTSA, Middle Tennessee State over 62.5. I will take it up to 64. Just get it in as soon as you can. That is it. Last words as we get on out of here, Dan.
Good luck, everybody. Follow us on Twitter. Follow the show. Subscribe. When we're getting back on. Thanks for tuning. Best of luck this week.
Best of luck, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. You can follow Dan at DanH720. Myself, Kayvon_sports. This is the College Football Week 5 Best Bets Fighting Chance Fantasy. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week to recap it all.